Hello, and welcome to the Mother Birth Podcast, where we navigate the terrains of women's health and maternal well-being through the lens of yoga therapy and Ayurveda. I am Leanne Matullo, and I'm a perinatal yoga therapist, a doula, writer, creative entrepreneur, teacher, and mother. I'll be your guide as we excavate the mysteries of conscious conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, mothering in all its forms, and matters of the feminine. I'm so glad that you're here. Hello. Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Mother Birth. I am Leanne Matullo. This is a brief, short episode, I think, because my children and my husband are out on a walk, and I've had this stirring in me all day long, and I thought I would jump on because I do think that this topic will be really helpful for a lot of individuals, a lot of mothers, a lot of women, a lot of caregivers, grandparents even, and anybody that's really working with kids. So maybe we'll call this podcast, I don't know, like a micro dose or something, or a mini. I'm not sure what we'll call it yet. And just for context, it's another hot day in Rhode Island. So if you ever have a chance to stumble upon the actual podcast videos on YouTube, where I also have some movement videos and practices, you'll see that I'm just always sweaty, it seems. My hair is always up. And anyway, so I want to share just a little bit about where I'm at and where this episode is coming from. And as always, I don't have an agenda. I've written a little bit about this today for my own expression when my kids were in quiet time and napping. So yesterday, and actually like for almost a week now, I've been in conversation with multiple parents in my life, some near, some far. Some of us have very similar values. Actually, a lot of us have very similar values. That's actually the truth of it. Some of us don't question those values as much, or have awakened a little bit to systems in different ways. And that's neither better nor worse. It just is, right? What I want to preface this conversation is that there is truth in tears. So one of the things that we talk about in yoga therapy, particularly in the style and lineage of yoga therapy that I practice, is that when there is crying, it's a release. Yes, something is leaving the body, something is moving, and there's often truth. Like we've struck gold on something. And there have been a lot of tears in my circles, a lot of tears with the women in my life who have children that are about the same age as my son, who are entering kindergarten or even first grade, second grade, particularly in the public school system and in the private schools as well. And so over the last week or so, I've talked with people that I know and don't know, and the consensus is this, that they aren't ready to have their child, their 5-year-old, their 6-year-old, enter into kindergarten. And what happens is, again, I use this word pathologize a lot because it's the truth, or we try and reason or logic away why that is. Like, oh, it's the end of their child years. It's the end of those baby years. It's the end of those childlike wonder moments. And there's a lot of sadness. And of course, there's grief around any transition. Let's be clear that this isn't saying that there's not going to be grief around transitions, but this is a different emotion that I'm picking up on. And that's the realization that, yes, we might not be ready for our children to enter kindergarten. And when the tears come, it's the recognition that actually they aren't ready either. And the despair starts to set in because we start to think, what are my other options? Okay. And the reality is 5, 6, 7-year-olds are not ready. They're not ready for kindergarten as we know it. They're not ready to sit at desks all day, particularly when last week they were either being nurtured at home and playing outside and having tons of unstructured play, or maybe they were in pre-K and had a little bit more routine and ritual, but were still outside for a good portion of their day, playing, building, being creative, being silly, singing songs, dancing, having snack times. And then in a matter of moments, they're put inside in classrooms and expected to be more regimented in the way that they approach their day and expected, at least here, not to have snack times, expected to have 20-minute recesses outside, expected to start to measure up to standards that don't make sense for a 5, 6, 7, even 8, 9, 10 year old. Okay. And so the reality is, it's not you, like the mother that's grieving and is sad. We don't have to pretend and we don't have to make excuses for why we are feeling the way that we're feeling because you are not the one that's wrong. You are absolutely right. Your instincts are absolutely correct. It is the systems that are designed that are wrong. It is the systems that are flawed. It is the educational system that has a rotten root. And who am I to talk about this? Like, who am I to talk about this? Well, I'll tell you who I am to talk about this. My master's is in education and human development. Not that you need a master's to really understand children and what they need. You can really gain a lot by observing them. But I'll also say that my foray into yoga therapy and into teaching yoga started with kids. I worked with inner city youth. And then when I moved to a rural town in central Pennsylvania, and some of my very first clients were children. And what I noticed a lot of those children had was this inability to, I don't want to say sit still, but to be in their bodies because they were beginning to be taught to live in their minds. And so they weren't in touch with their emotions. They were losing their sense of wonder and creativity and play. And thank God, thank Goddess, their mothers and fathers reached out because they recognized that there was something missing. And yoga was a way to bridge that gap, particularly when the school system started to strip it away. And now, if you have placed your children in public school or in private school, I'm a product of public school education as well. It's not a shameful thing, right? It's not saying you are wrong for doing this thing because we're all making decisions that are right for us in the situations that we are in. Okay. It's not as easy as saying, all right, well, I'm just going to pull my kid out and homeschool. Maybe for some of us it is. Maybe the desire is so strong that we are willing to sacrifice our jobs, an extra car, whatever it is to make a change. But those changes don't just happen unless we also really get to know ourselves. And so this is the other point that I'm making is that when we lean into what we're feeling and what we're noticing and actual truth for us and for our families and for our children, then we can start to make the changes that we need on a wider scale for healthier individuals, mothers, women, children, and whole societies. That doesn't happen by fixing a broken system. Doesn't happen by smashing a patriarchal system. It happens by doing the work ourselves to get to know who we are, to get to know what truth feels like in our bodies and in our hearts, and to learn how to express it in a way that's not necessarily anger and rage, but also love, more so love. And that's where I am. Today is an emotional day for me because I'm not sending my child to public school. It would be so convenient. It is right down the street. We can walk to school. It would be so convenient, especially when so many of his friends are in the neighborhood and they will probably be in the same class. But I can't do it. A couple years ago, I walked around in the neighborhood. I was with my son one day and went a different direction and came upon where he could go to school from a different direction. And I just had this very clear knowing of he will not go here. He will not go here. There's just no way that this boy who is so vibrant and full of life and loves the outdoors, how will he continue to develop his connection with nature when he's stuck inside four walls? It's not happening. And so one of my dreams, I can't believe I'm saying this right here. I would love one day to establish a true, I don't even want to say nature-based school or Waldorf school. I love those types of schools, but like a walled kindergarten type school where we are teaching them about their connection and that they are of nature. And we're teaching them how to be in the world. And we're really teaching them about who they are, getting to know their strengths and their likes and their curiosities rather than standardizing who they are to tests that really have no value, especially as we grow up and we grow older. I would love that. I would love these schools to be full of light, natural light, good food, having beautiful grounds, flowers and trees and places to sit and learn and run and roll. I can see it so clearly in my mind. And so we have chosen a different school for Bodhi, and it has turned a lot of heads, and people don't understand our decision, and it's not convenient, and it's not paid for by taxes. And people might say that's a privilege, and that's okay. They can say that. But it's gonna be the right thing for him, at least right now, and it's really important that I invest in his life now in the present rather than teaching him to constantly plan for a future that we cannot control. So, that's where I'm at today, and I wanna say this is not to shame anyone's decisions, it's actually more so to share that your instincts, again, are right. That when we feel those tears start to fall because, like, gosh, they're not ready. Well, they're not ready for a life like that. Are you? Do you like being inside all day? Do you like being on screens? Do you like being, told what to do hour by hour, not being able to snack? Like, do you like that? No. There aren't very many of us who do. And so why are we doing it to our kids? And what are we going to do about it as individuals that might be committed to our own spiritual practices, our own ways of doing motherhood and womanhood differently? What are we going to do about it? So I invite you to lean into that felt sense of, this doesn't feel right, even if this is the decision I'm making right now. And what can I do to support the change? What can we create together? What can I lean into? What other options do I have? There are so many more options out there. There are homeschool co ops, there are Waldorf schools, there are nature based schools, there are homeschool pods. I don't even want to say pods, but there are homeschool classrooms. And there's so many things out there that we don't necessarily have to do what society hands us. And if a more ritual, I don't want to say ritual, regimented, traditional educational system is where you are with your children right now, how can we offer them more creative play, unstructured time, time outside? How can we make sure that we're connecting with them in the time that we have? And how can we actively invest in them now rather than saying it has to be this way so that you can get into college or get a good job or whatever? How can we invest in who they are now? I think that's it for today. And I want to say I'm so grateful again that you're here and that you're listening. I also want to offer at this time of the podcast, it's August of 2022. I hope that this serves many, many years into the future. At this point in time, I am enrolling in my program called Afterglow. It is a perinatal mentorship program, meaning that it is for those who are pregnant and those who are up to 5 years postpartum. And yes, there's prenatal yoga and postnatal yoga and meditation. So definitely movement practices, definitely childbirth education, postpartum education. But what we actually get a lot of is this conversations like this. What is truth? Where does that feel, or where do I feel that in my body? Where does that live in my body? How do I get in touch with that? And how do I recognize that my truth is going to be different than my sister's, my mother's, my neighbor's, even my child's? And how do we integrate that into our familial structure? How do we honor our own physiologic design? How do we honor the design of our children? How do we connect with something that's greater than us? And how do we really redefine what life is, what success is, what motherhood is, and what womanhood is? That's what we do. And we do it all through yoga therapy and through Ayurveda. And yes, the movement and the meditation is absolutely a piece of it. And what's the most beautiful is the mentorship calls, the live calls themselves, where we're having conversations like this one together. I think it really is changing lives. I know it's changing lives, and I would love, love, love for you to witness it and to be a part of it. So if you feel called, check it out. I'll include the link in my show notes, and we can schedule some time to talk. Totally free, never a sales pitch, just time to get to know you and for you to get to know me. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Sending much love to all of your children, newborns, babies, toddlers, school-age children. I hope you are well, and I can't wait to talk to you soon.